Hello, welcome. Today we are talking about women and AI, and we're also going to be kind of celebrating CSEdWeek, so Computer Science Education Week, and wanting to just share about the role of women in AI, talk more about AI. I've got AI expert here, and in part of my studies, kind of intersect with AI, and I'm very, very interested in it. It's past, present, and future. So I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, Felipe. Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Angie Ariza. I'm from Colombia. That's why I have this accent. But recently I moved to Montreal. I'm a physicist. I started studying physics and I love programming. So back in Colombia, in my university, doesn't exist the computer science program itself. So it's math, just the basic sciences math, physics, chemistry, and inside physics we have computational physics and some subjects like that I take, and I loved it. I learned how to program by myself because I was like, okay, it's the 21st century and we're still doing some math by hand, and I can stand it. So I learned how to program in Python, and luckily I have some good teachers that they receive my calculations on programming, not just by hand. So that was really good. And when I graduated, I was really into apply the science into real life problems. I really went to it, and I started seeing these data scientists, data science subjects into the industry. Like industry was requiring like smart people who know how to program. And at the beginning, they didn't call them data scientists; they called them like scientific programmers. And within the months, it was really quick. The data scientist role appears, also the data analyst roles and data engineering roles. So I started working as a data scientist, and I've been working as a data scientist the last 4 years.
But then data science also led you into AI, because that's where I've kind of come at it. I came at it in terms of really just falling in love with data visualization, and that led me into data science. But then as I studied GIS, it's spatial data science. But AI is part of it. I mean, for example, with image analysis, we use it for categorization, we use it for change detection, and we can use it for predictive analysis. And that's one kind of AI. I mean, obviously, we get AI with large language models. And so then sort of in the category of generative AI, and then there's computer vision, and there's all of these things. So one of the things I want to start us off with today is let's just do a deep dive, because one of the things that kind of hit the news was New York Times came out with this article that said, who are the leaders in AI? You know, how did we get here? Who built what we have today? And it was noticeable, and I noticed a lot of sort of, I'll call it backlash, that I sort of saw on LinkedIn, which was like, hey, wait a minute, why are there no women on this list when there are some incredible women who were part of the foundation of building AI to what it is today, and the leaders of the future as well. So I wanted to start with your expertise and your take on these articles. And if we want to go ahead and sort of just, we'll review them. Let's start with the New York Times one and look at sort of who's there, who we recognize, who we may not be as familiar with, but we certainly know the companies that they run. And then, and then we're going to sort of counter that with a view to some of the actual women who were not included in that article, and certainly could have, should have been, but really sort of to build that awareness so that we're all sort of aware of who these people are, these players are. A great place to start if you're interested in AI, by following these people on LinkedIn and reading their posts, and also following their organizations and other things that they put out there. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and start with sharing the New York Times article.
Yeah. So should we present our screen?
Yes. Yeah. As soon as I see it, I'll add it to the screen, and I will switch our view.
Okay. Let me share it. This is the article.
Yeah. And here we are. I'm going to go ahead and put you on the top. There we go.
So yeah, this is the article. It has like a really interesting name. Who is who behind the dawn of the modern artificial intelligence movement? And it directly go to some people and start the photo, the name, and some of them, there are people that is really popular, that have been popular for different reasons. Some of them are really into artificial intelligence, and I think, in my opinion, some others don't directly into artificial intelligence, but I think they're here because their opinion is always heard. Like people is always interested in hear the same people talking about what is new. What do you think about technology or some subjects that sometimes they are not even their expertise, you know? And I think the article is really boring. Sometimes they're using words like convert. In this case, it says like, even though that Bill Gates didn't believe in artificial intelligence, then he was convert into it. And it's like, okay, we're talking about science. It's not something you believe in. It's something you work on. It's something that evolves. It's not just that you one day believe on it and it's true, and the other day you don't, and it was not going to be true. And all these people, there are CEOs of very well-known companies, and the article is also talking about money. There's something interesting. It's like these people, this person has been investing this big amount of money on AI. So it's really centered into companies, business, money, and people who is all the time like known for it. Like there are the popular people like Elon Musk, who is on the media all the time. Sometimes because they just have a controversial opinion and everyone is hearing that controversial opinion. Maybe that opinion then changes and that is like popular again. So here he is. There are some other people that I didn't know before the article, but again, the idea is like the same. Is the people who is working for the same kind of company, who has invested a lot of money on it, and it went like that the whole article. A really boring article. I think it. Of course, the first thing is that there are no women, and it's like, okay, you couldn't find, even thought that is not really good into artificial intelligence research. Who are the people who are researching on new artificial intelligence? It is centered more into the business part and the millions of dollars and the people who is investing on it. They didn't show women on it, and it's like you couldn't find even women in those categories, women who is in businesses for these great companies who have been working on AI over the last years. It's hard to think that the person who wrote the article couldn't find any woman. I think maybe he just wrote about the people that he already knows, and the people who are always on the news, and the same people who is always talking about the different subjects.
And I think what you said about the convert, about Bill Gates, I really think that that has more to do also with the business case. Like a lot of these people and sort of the foundations, it's not so much that they were coding it or training as much as they were sort of making the investments in the business cases and understanding, oh, we see the future, we see the potential, we see the revenue that can be gained here, and we're going to make sort of the bigger sort of strategic corporate moves within the industry. But I think it sort of really misses the mark in terms of, you know, who were the actual developers really getting into the deep research of this, like the real science of this.
Yeah, and I don't know why is this happen, but most of the time they're asking the same people about different subjects. I think it's sometimes like, okay, this person is intelligent, he's smart, of course, he's smart, but it doesn't mean that he has to be an expert in everything. He didn't has to know it all, but it's just because he's smart, we want to ask him and we want to know what he thinks, and we all want to share his vision, and sometimes they could even be wrong. You know, he's a smart person, but this is not his expertise. So I don't know.
Yes.
It's,
So I think when they sort of say who are the people behind it, it's sort of saying, okay, we might have found capital to invest in it. We might have again, facilitated those deals. But
Mm.
I'm excited to look at the women's list because I feel like there's a lot of the real sort of work that was done in the training and the ethics and a lot of the parts of it that are quite important. So yeah, let's take a look at what we can see sort of as we look to sort of fill this information gap where clearly you have a lot of men, I would say a lot of white men in this conversation, and let's sort of round it out and show that AI has many women leaders in it who represent past, present, and future of AI, all very relevant, all very important. And I think that anyone like myself who has an interest in incorporating AI into my research, into my work, into my knowledge and learning how to train models, and again specifically for me and in my sort of role in as a GIS developer, there's a place where AI is very much intersects with what I want to do. So I'm finding that this is fascinating to sort of really learn about these people. A few of them I was aware of, but really kind of getting into it, there's a lot more that people here that I'm excited to learn more about. So I'll turn it over back to you to share with us this list.
Yes, there is a lot of interesting things on here happening here, but I would like to start for another side before going through these women, is that you know that women, we haven't been into science and technology for a lot of time. I mean, this is historical. Like all the time, we're talking about it, and I think right now it's more natural to think about, okay, women need to be here. But for me, it's not just that women need to be into artificial intelligence. It is crucial, in my opinion, because um, this for the first time we're creating technology that learn from us, and it's when it learns from us, it learns from the people who is building in it. So we need all the diversity that we humans have. We need to create these solutions based on the all the diverse and the diverse problems we have, the diverse visions, and there is something really interesting, is that genius can have, and they already have, different forms. And some brilliant person, the person who's going to bring um, the net, I don't know, neural networks in terms of artificial intelligence tools and research, could be a person who came from a very different background, who looks really different, who has different ideas, who has all the diverse tools to create and see what is needed and what is happening inside the algorithms, and it's really necessary. One example of this is the case of Joy, the woman on the left. Joy is known for writing the Unmasking AI book, and it's not just a book. She was the person who, at the beginning, noticed that the algorithm who has to recognize her face for something wasn't recognizing black faces. She has to use a black mask in order to the algorithm to recognize her. So and she just noticed the what was happened with what was the problem, and she can track, understand, and explains everything. What was this happening? In which part of the algorithm is it happening? And the reality shows that there wasn't a black person involved in any part of the development, deployment of the algorithm and the tool itself. There wasn't an image who was really um, popular at that time. It was something like this in the news, when the algorithm was trying to detect the points of her face, all the features on her face. When she put her black face, in front of the camera, it wasn't recognizing anything. And then when she put the mask, the white mask, in front of her face, the algorithms start recognizing the features. So that's like, it was really visual. So it was easy to understand. Okay, there is a big difference with the mask, without the mask, what is happening here. And as I said, She was a student in the MIT, I think. She could recognize what was happening. She tracks it and explaining it. So it was really good. This is the person, for example. And it starts like all these discussions about biases, about ethical AI, what is really interesting and what is necessary to bring all that subject into artificial intelligence. It's because when people develop that program, they wasn't thinking about, okay, we're gonna do it wrong for Black people. That wasn't the idea. The idea is we're gonna do this really good service. We're gonna develop a nice tool, but they weren't thinking about, okay, does our data have some biases? How are we gonna treat that biases? How are we gonna train the model? Do we need so many images, but the same kind of images? All those questions weren't asked during the process, and she was one person, for example, in this case, who brings that discussion into the real world problems, the products. That is really interesting.
Very much so. I think the idea of training the model and again making those choices is so important. In a funny, not funny way, I heard one about computer vision where they trained a vehicle that recognized all sorts of other cars and trucks and other things that it would see on the road, but it was at an airport and it was never trained on the leg of a plane, and it just crashed into it because it was never trained on that. It had no idea what that was. Uh, and then I think the other thing I noticed, just I use a lot of transcription, and with the English language, if someone is a native speaker, it's okay. But even then, we have a lot of regional accents, like a Southern accent. It doesn't know what to do with it. And if someone like yourself is not a native English speaker, it really struggles with it. And even where you're speaking English, I understand you perfectly. But we need to be able to train models that do transcription on a broader range of accents.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I know that right now it's really easy to see. Like, of course, anyone could see it right now, but because somebody saw it at the first time, and because she suffered from that bias, that's why it's important to have all the diverse people into artificial intelligence. It's more easy if you suffer from one prejudice to see it and to know how to correct them. You will know, or you'll be a little bit closer to find a solution. Because the thing here is that there are a lot of biases, and they are really hard to find. And this is the thing: you are not telling this to the model. You're not telling them, okay, this is something that you don't have to do because this is wrong for some reason, but because you don't know that is going to happen. You don't know that those biases exist into the data. It's really hard to have control in everything, and maybe all the struggles that we have been having during the years of, okay, don't reinforce some roles into the society, or don't reinforce like some prejudices could be this struggle could be lost with the big amount of data. We can see it all the time with the non-interpretable or black box models. If we don't find like a way to interpret them, if we don't develop ethical AI specific for different kind of problems. And there is something interesting about ethical that is local. What could be ethical in one place or for one kind of problem would not be ethical from another place or another kind of problem. So we need to like create some um, general methods to try to understand and like be use better be better with ethical algorithms. But I'm sure it's going to be a big task because of the local um, behavior of ethical. I mean, beyond the fact that there are people, and here are another woman who is working on it, like people like Joel, who is actively working in AI research into fairness, even though that there's a lot of people, great people, so much so much talented teams working on it, there is still going to be we're still going to need working on it in a local base. I mean, it's going to be really necessary to most people have all the ethical idea present into all the into all the products they are developing. So it's something really interesting. But again, there is, for example, this woman, she's working even in multilingual, multimodal translations model, who is going to be like who's going to be really big in the moment that this research, for example, has some general methods for fairness and also new models for multimodal, the easiest way to train or not train but reuse a model into multimodal translations is going to be huge. And here is
Let's
another woman who's
let me
working on
just
it.
let's just define multimodal. So as far as I'm understanding multimodal, we're dealing with text, we're dealing with image, you can deal with audio, video, just the idea that there's different, is that what, I just want to define multimodal.
Yeah, it's that way. Right now, the LLM models are really good into large language models, but write it down. Like if you write I mean, if all the entrance of the model are just one kind of mode, like it's just writing. But if you want to combine, you want information who is right, but also data who is just speech. Maybe you want images and video to complement a communication, for example, or to complement a data set. It has different problems because okay, we're having data that at the beginning is different kind of data, but it could be related. But how are we going to relate a speech, just the waves of the sound, with something that is write down? How can we correlate that information, and how can we train a model who can understand the uh, different kind of informations about, for example, the same subject, but all to be correlated, to have a context, to have attention, who understand what is the the subject about, and have a good answer about it. So multimodal is about the different kind of the different form the information can have, not just writing down. Even I mean, at this moment we can use different languages. We can start in Spanish and easily change to English. That is not a problem at this moment. But if we're gonna have audio and then video and then some information right, it's different. That's the multimodal um, part of artificial intelligence. It will be really interesting when we have it, because communication is really complex. It's not just what you write down. Even thought that you can write something really good, like with all the punctuation for the model to make them easy to understand it in the right way, and you can feed the model with a lot of articles and a lot of context, but that is not enough. Maybe when you see a video, you can see expressions. And how are you gonna read expressions? Are you gonna read the same expressions for anger, for example? The words, we can identify some words for saying, okay, these words are for love, for example, or these words are for hate. But the expression, how do you understand the expression? How you categorize the expressions, and then how you bring the expressions with the speech and with some other kind of information. So how to correlate all that information is really difficult. And yeah, that's the multimodal part of artificial intelligence some people is working on.
The next question is FAIR, it sounds like FAIR is an acronym. So is it for AI research? Is that sort of what FAIR is standing for? Because I remember in sort of spatial data, there was FAIR, but I feel like it had to do with like accessibility, interoperability, reliability. Like, so there was an idea that you have these different acronyms, but just in reading her bio, it looked like for AI research was actually what FAIR was standing for, even though we think of it as what we want it to be, which is equal and good.
Yes. In this case, it comes perfect that what the word is trying to say and the acronym of what they're working on. Uh, it's the same. I think is on purpose. It's easy to understand and to remember. But yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. Fairness has been really interesting the last years, and I think the next years is going to be even more interesting.
Well, I think it from my point of view, because I'm not behind the scenes and I've not been into these conversations that many people have been in for decades, and that AI research is a thing that's been around for many, many years. But I think in terms of being I'll call it a member of the public, that it really sort of came into our use of us being on the front end utilizing it. I mean, even though it's being used by banks and credit card companies and the justice system and all of these other ways in which AI impacts our lives in ways we don't even see or understand. I think that with the launch of ChatGPT, we're now sort of just past its sort of 1 year anniversary, where it's infiltrated academics and schools, and teachers have been on the back foot, and administrators like, what do we do with this? Is this helping our students or is this hurting our students? Like, what do we do? And I think that I'm a big advocate for making sure that people understand that we are the guardrails and we need to speak up, and that we need to know how to advocate. And if things are not working, if things are not doing what they're supposed to do. So I think that it's really important to be aware of it, to see and understand how it's being deployed in our society, and to just, again, and this is coming from someone who's using it on the front end, but aware of how much it's being kind of used behind the scenes in our society.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think, I mean, we're living some very interesting times. It's almost a dream. There is a lot of things going on. Everyone has um, different worries. The government is starting to get involved because it's okay. Okay, we're talking about artificial intelligence, but right now we're seeing that they're doing some really interesting things. Even thought that there's been years that artificial intelligence is being really interesting, but as you say, like for a day-to-day basis, for people who are at the school, at the university, using ChatGPT and things like that, I think it's really interesting. That it's really important to keep critical thinking about it. As you say, if we are the intelligent, this is called artificial intelligence, but till today is not real intelligence. It's just a way that we're trying to discover that we call artificial intelligence. The real intelligence is us, is the human being, and how we react to it, how we use it, how is it gonna evolve through our societies. It's really interesting. But yeah, I think critical thinking is really needed at this time. You know?
Yeah, and we're also in an age of misinformation. A lot of our media channels have become so politicized in ways that it's designed to misinform. I mean, in the United States, we've almost sort of devolved into what I would refer to as state TV, where there's sort of these ideas of propaganda is okay, and people get really just aren't having that discernment between what is real and they were sort of saying, when it comes to disinformation, when you put so much nonsense into the information space and people just get overwhelmed by it, they stop trying to discern it, and then pieces of it sort of end up getting embedded into their belief system. And I think that when we're also working with these large language models, they're not accurate, and they sometimes hallucinate, and they put out a lot of disinformation as well. And so I think that we have to, especially, and again, I kind of bring it back to sort of the American model right now, is use this discernment, use our intellect, so that we can protect our democracy, and so that we can protect ourselves and to understand things. So I think when you're learning and working with a large language model, I think it's actually really good to test it with something that you know really, really well, and ask it questions so that you can actually prompt it to say, no, that's not quite right. No, I don't think you have, I think it's this, and let it sort of say, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and so if you get to sort of prompt it and train it. Whereas if you go to it seeking insights on something you know nothing about, and then take what it's going to say as truth, you may have a problem.
Yeah, I don't know why fear sells. Like having all this news about artificial intelligence and the end of human species because of it. I don't know why it sells, but yeah, there is a lot of misinformation or things like I remember when Copilot came out, the Copilot from GitHub, that it says that all the data scientists were gonna lose our jobs and all the developers because there is this intelligent tool who is better writing a code. And the thing is, it's not. It's a really good help. It's a really good assistance, but you still need the person. You when you develop something, even though that is something technical, it requires the human creativity. Every developer develops in a different way, and you can read it through the code lines. It's like okay, you can see almost who is the person behind it, what are their best practices or not. I think it's very romantic in some way because I like the program. But I remember when we were all thinking that we're gonna lose our jobs. That was like I don't know, maybe one more than 1 year ago. And the thing is that we still need people, as you say, when right now when you're training an LLM model, there is a lot of work to do. Sorry, the human need to do. Like we have to do the training. There is a lot of problems that we already know that they exist, like hallucinations, but there are some others that we don't know exactly what is happening, and we need to fine tune every model really good and very specifically for different use cases. So there is a lot of work still to do in all of them, and there is some new models every time, and you can see okay, this is good for some things and it's not really good for some others, but you have to do all the work over and over again, and you can like believe in the results. You have to try it, you have to test it, you have to evaluate all the time. Like the word is the same. The idea that you can just believe and trust on it because this is science, and you have to have some precision, some accuracy. All then you're meeting these metrics again all the time, like we've been doing in the last 5 years with machine learning. That is still going. Yeah.
Well, and I think I just saw a speech that a TED talk that Fei Fei Li was doing, and what she was saying is that with, for example, doctors are going to be having another pair of eyes to look at an X-ray to help to diagnose things. That she's not saying the AI is going to do this for them. It's not becoming the doctor, but it's able to sort of add to their vision, add to what they can see, and be an aid for them, not a replacement for them.
I know, and I don't know. There is something when a scientist speak up about something, the the answer which will always depend. There is not just black and white, and I think people don't. The people who sell news don't like to think in gray terms. They just like white and or white or black. And sometimes they're like misusing what people said. But yeah, as you say, there is a lot of work. We are still being the intelligent people. It's not, and even it's not just from one person. It's just this person. She says it's not just me. It's the artificial intelligence in itself, because there is a lot of people working on it. Look, there is something interesting. I just remember when I was in the university, once I have this exam, it was special mathematics for physicists. This is like huge mathematics. We were using tensors and a lot of problems that they don't have like an analytic solution, and that was the idea. Our teacher let us use our PCs or cell phones, whatever we wanted to use, and it wasn't enough. And we, after 7 hours of exam, we realized that it's not the answer is not always outside. It's not on internet. Internet doesn't know it all, and this was on purpose. The thing is, try to solve a problem in a different way. A problem that they required a numerical solution. It wasn't analytical, and we didn't have like big computers, so we're not gonna solve it completely in a computer that will take some days to process all the numbers. We just need to propose new solutions, and that is the idea. If you, I mean, you need to do this exercise all the time. Okay, it's like when you ask about, you don't believe the answer that ChatGPT can give you in if you ask something. You don't believe, you don't trust, but you're doing the exercise. Or maybe, okay, this is another tool who is good to program, to code. But what if I choose to propose a new solution? That part of the creativity that is really important into any solution, if it is a product from a company, or if it is a research um, new method or project, you really need to be creative, and that is just um, a human feature, at least for the moment. I think that's more important, and it's really difficult to find. I mean, I think that's a special feature to find, even in humans, you know.
And I appreciate what you say about creativity and technology because, again, I kind of jogged back into sciences, but have been on an art track for so long. And it's just sort of find where's your point of entry when you've been in the arts into the sciences. And I was very fortunate to find GIS because it's so intersectional and that my fellow classmates have backgrounds as geologists, earth scientists, urban planners, international relations, computer science. It's so intersectional, and that we all kind of come together to create data maps and then the various applications of that. And for me, it's within the emergency management and intelligence space is kind of my interest in it. But I think a lot of other science tracks, if you don't have an undergrad degree in math, if you didn't study math in your high school and have that be your concentration, sometimes you don't have a way back into science. So I think that it's understanding too that there are a lot of things here that we can learn. For example, like Microsoft, NVIDIA, Google, many others have these learning paths for all of us, whether they're on ethical AI, whether they're on using the cloud and AI. For Microsoft, it's Azure or AI or Google Cloud. And that there's a ton of information out there that is learnable and that it's available either for free or low cost, or like myself, went back to graduate school. I started with a certificate in GIS, and then that led me into a second master's in human security and geospatial intelligence. So there's all of these ways that we can learn. And I think that with how quickly all of this is evolving, I just really encourage all of us to be learners.
Yeah, that's totally true. I think while you were saying all of this, I was thinking in different things. Of course, I'm a physicist. I mean, my background is from science, but science itself, it doesn't need to be like I'm just the people who studies computational physics is going to work on computational basic in computer science or in artificial intelligence, because again, knowledge, like the ability to interconnect different kind of knowledge and to learn new things is what truly matters. All the time we're learning new things, and it's necessary. I think there is something that I loved, is that there is a reason why all the companies are showing to the public their libraries and their models. For example, when PyTorch was released at the beginning, it was a really good library. It was really easy to use, but it wasn't as big as it is right now. And it's because the open source community is being adding new things. This part of the open source that all we as a community we're making this better, and just because we want it, because we love it, because we're using it and we see that there is something new we can add. I think there is not. I mean, there is for a reason that the companies are showing all the, again, the libraries and the algorithms, and it's because different um, things, but I think one of those things is because there are a lot of talent out there. There is a lot of people with different use cases, with different ideas that just a small team inside the company won't be able to cover all the possible cases. When they release it to the public, to the open source community, the community is going to use it in so many different ways. So that is important, as if you're part of the community, to learn what is the new things, to try to use it, to criticize them, to raise your hand, to push new things, to find and discover errors. People is doing that. And for the people who has the libraries, to listen at the people who's working on it, who is raising their hands, who are using it in different ways, maybe because at the beginning when they release some model, they just thought of it on some cases, but people is using it in some other different cases. I love that part. It's like all the time it's growing, there is something new, there is you can be part of it easily. I love that part. Like as you said, learning is really important, and is we have the the great conditions for it. Like everybody who knows how to program, who is really interested, who can learn easily, can propose also. That is amazing. I think that is really great.
Yes, and so I, in my learnings, one of the many gifts and opportunities that have been given, and I've received a few different scholarships, and one of them was through Google and BWOS, into the Google Coursera programs. So Cassie is actually one of the instructors inside of the data analytics course. So I just finished my project management certificate, and I have like a whole schedule, because it's actually like a almost a year-long project to complete like the 9 certificates. And so almost every day I sort of pick away at it. And I, like, for example, I think there's like 57 modules and I've completed 16. So
Wow.
but within that, I'm learning, just taking my programming to another level, and the data analytics, the advanced data analytics, just finished project management, cybersecurity. And anyway, so I recognize Cassie from as one of the instructors within the data analytics certificate.
No, and also about Casey, I follow her years ago. This is one of the women I've been following her because she posts a lot in LinkedIn, and I find okay, this is really interesting. It's a woman with a strong opinion about something. Sometimes people used to say, okay, we don't publish about women because maybe they're not strong. They are strong characters. Maybe it's that you haven't heard of the strong characters, or you're just focused on the same ones all the time. So Casey is one example of it. You can find really interesting opinions, and they are really well explained. That you can follow her, understand it or not, but she puts all the thoughts. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, she's very well spoken, and obviously very, very knowledgeable.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, talking again about the importance is I noticed that the person who wrote this article is a woman too. And again, I've heard sometimes like, okay, it's a women task to speak about other women, and I think it's not. Of course, it's not. It's a need, and not just women about women technology. It needs to be the normal, the common. It's not women or men in technology. It's who are the people who are out there working on it. What I mean is that most of the time when you see that is a woman talking, sometimes other people is okay. I'm a man. I'm a man. It has nothing to do with men, and it do has. It's just that we as women, we're the first who are gonna notice it, because okay, we have suffered from that prejudice, and we already know that we exist out there. So we're the first who are gonna raise their hand about it. That is not the norm. I think it's something good to just to show. There is a woman who show it, but this is not the only article that I saw that there are other people criticizing this, and also men who are saying the same. Okay, you missed about some other people who are out there making great researches like Fei Fei. and you forgot about it. I think that's really interesting, and that is a result of our struggle. That's the result of us being all the time there, showing us, talking about it, and yeah, showing it over and over again, and not just into women, into AI, but all the diversity, all the kind of problems that could be there, and the really good people who is working on it. You know, just that I found that really interesting.
Are there other highlights of other women here that we can just kind of go through a few more of these that caught your attention? Obviously, I knew some of them you were familiar with, and some of them you're seeing for the first time yourself.
Yes, let me see. Because I lost it. Here it is. Yeah, Fei Fei Lin. She's one of the. Which is wait. Let me find her here.
There she is.
Yes, she's one of the people who was working on ImageNet. The ImageNet is just one of the most important CNN neural networks, because whatever you're gonna work with the images, one of the first steps is working with ImageNet. You're not gonna retrain a whole model from scratch. You're gonna use this that is already been trained with a lot of images, very different, and after that you can continue with your product with your project. But she's one of the person who work on it, like, okay, we can create like this big hub of images into one model, a CNN. They build them. Yeah, it's something that we use in our day-to-day basis when we're trying to when we're trying to train some model for computer vision, of course. And again, she's young, she's out there all the time, she's talking about I mean, everyone knows what she's working on, and whatever she's researching is going to be, I mean, out there into the publication, the posts. Is one of the person who I think is that and at that point of reference. She already works on something that is really important for every data scientist who's working in computer vision. So we're going to follow her to see what else is going to come out from her and their researchers, something like that. So just she's one of the main characters, I would say.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, no, which is great. Of course, Mira Murati. This is really interesting because I already know her before she became popular after some Alma's uh, news, and it's because she's been a while into the artificial intelligence from the business part inside Silicon Valley. She's been one of those strong female characters in there, thinking that there is a um, mostly men dominated environment. She's been there, she's been working on it, she's been having a lot of I don't know how to say, like, little success that you can see if you're really interested into looking for women who are out there being a reference. And luckily she became popular because of the OpenAI's news, like thinking about that she could be the next CEO, and she's been the CTO of OpenAI. I think, I'm not sure since their beginning, but she's been the main engineering of that big company. That's really interesting.
And I just for the first time played with DALL-E with inside ChatGPT 4, where I was able to put in an image and help it give it some prompts and have it generate new images for me. So it's the first time I've used ChatGPT for image generation.
Oh, that's great. I find something really magical is that there are so many tools for generated images, and people who don't know anything about it are using it. For example, my little sister, she she didn't she's handicapped. I think is the way it says.
Yeah.
She didn't listen. Um, she speaks sign language, and she knows how to use it. Sometimes she sends me some images and I can see it by because how it look. They are artificial intelligence generated images, and I just ask her, okay, how did you build that, or where it came from. And she didn't use Dolly. She used some other tools that are more easy to use, that are free, and she can create little like full things. For example, she want to make um, a gift card for me with my name. So she pulled this and she add kitties and flowers, and you can see it. You can detect it's an AI generated image. But how is it that it's too easy to use and people don't need to understand what is happening behind? I found that is magical. That is the best description of abstraction, and I think that is like one successful example of artificial intelligence assisting people in the day-to-day life. That is really simple. It's a really simple example, but I found it almost magical. It's like for someone like her that it would be really difficult for me to try to explain her, oh, because she didn't even program or she's not interested in artificial intelligence, just to use it. She don't need to understand it, and that's good. That's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's why to me this is a very accessible conversation because it really doesn't matter where you are in, how front end or how back end you are. Like I said, if you're just using it because you want to create a post, a card, just play with the images. I know that Facebook Meta just announced a new one. I use Adobe Firefly quite a bit, which is also free. And I love playing with the image generation. And you really have to prompt it because you have to kind of. The one thing that I want them to be able to do that they can't do right now is to enter your text properly or say don't do text. Because what makes me really frustrated is when they decide to put text on the image and they always misspell it. And so you just get a lot of gobbledygook and you can't say strike, like everything else about the image is wonderful, but strike that text. There's no option to do that right now.
I think something that is really interesting is how we're using artificial intelligence. Because, for example, this tool is made to use this way. Humans are not gonna use it in that correct way. We're gonna use it in different ways, and that is going to evolve. And I don't know if you noticed that. I noticed that ChatGPT was becoming fuller, a little bit stupid with the time. It's like I because I've seen how people use it. People use it really bad, and okay, you're intelligent. You have to understand what I was trying to say, and it was really bad. The answers are becoming worse for some time. Becoming wrong, like bad, really bad every time. And it is really common and it's really funny when you develop something and you say, okay, this is going to work for these cases and it's going to be used in this case. And that doesn't happen because we move all the time, the problem evolve, and we're not really good with instructions. Like naturally, you're not really good with instructions, and it's really interesting. How is that naturally growing, organically uh, growing? It's really interesting.
Yeah. And then like our university uses Turnitin to do AI detection. And it's interesting because I am curious, is like, is that trained on ChatGPT 3.5? Is it trained on ChatGPT 4.0? Is it trained on Bard? Like how comprehensive is that AI detection?
Yeah, and I think that could be, yeah. I will be really angry if maybe I like to write really well and I like to speak really well. I speak really well in Spanish because I like Spanish and I use really different words and not just use the basic words. But if there is a tool that says that I was using artificial intelligence while I wasn't using it because I speak or I write different, I will be mad at that. And I think, yeah, the way it's trained, it's really it will determine responses very different.
Yeah. It's like I said, I think it what I think is so interesting about this conversation again is it there's a front end and there's a back end, and it doesn't really matter where you start. It's very accessible to, like you said, your sister and everybody, my parents. It is, really doesn't matter. It's completely accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that I found really really interesting. Like really really be able to help. to help people, to assist as we want all this time. Yeah. Sometimes on other idea, it's really interesting when you see. Sometimes I used to think, okay, this is something that is really really hard for artificial intelligence at this moment. So, for example, the black humor, or when you're using some rhetorical things when you speak that way, is like, how can you explain this to a machine? Yeah, and as in the multimodal example, you are using some expressions, your face uh, it shows some expressions that maybe is not in your speech, and that is really difficult to understand. Even in humans, we can read it pretty well, not all the time. If we share the same community, we kind to understand pretty well our facial expressions and things like that. But if we came from different communities or even different countries, it's difficult. It's difficult. So how would you gonna try to understand that to a machine for for them to understand it and to use it into something? I think it's really hard, and there is a lot of research in that way.
Yeah, I think one thing that I was is helped to understand is that what they're doing is a lot of pattern recognition. And so if you're doing something where you're going to use sort of sarcasm or something, you'd have to give the model a few examples and then ask it based on your prompt to continue the pattern. And then it can sort of figure it out. But if you don't give it that context and a few other very specific examples, it wouldn't know where to start.
Yes, yes, and that is hard even for humans. So yeah, that those are the examples that you say, okay, it's gonna be really interesting. How is this going to evolve in the future, in the near future? It's really interesting.
No, it's I think it's there's so much to it. And like I said, I'm just at the very beginning of learning how to use tools like TensorFlow and Scikit-learn and IBM Watson, and I'm sure there are many, many others, but those are kind of where I'm starting. And then having just recently getting onboarded into Microsoft Student Ambassador Program, they have a number of learning paths to get us introduced to Azure AI, and then Google has a number of learning paths to get us introduced to Google Cloud and Duet AI and sort of other things within the Google AI ecosystem. And so there's a lot out there. I mean, and again, I'm not finding any lack of free, abundantly free, or very low cost opportunities to learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it needs to be that way. It doesn't matter if you are an expert, how fast how fast things are going at this moment. At the other day, there is something new that you don't know about. And of course, you're not gonna be an expert in anything, but you'll need to continue growing in whatever is your subject of expertise, because everything this is all of this is moving really fast, and there are some new things every day. And
Yep.
that's interesting. Like, you can get bored of it. If you're enter into artificial intelligence, you're not gonna get bored easily.
Yes. And then AI can be applied to so many fields. So, like you said, you obviously have a background as a physicist and working as a data scientist and sort of being involved in AI. But there's also, we can add domain specific knowledge to that. Like, I'm really, like I said, I have a master's in urban planning. And so I'm looking at, and I've taken an interest in and become a scholar on the IC side. So within the intelligence community. So seeing, how do we apply AI to national security? How do we apply AI to disaster resilience and response and recovery? And so there's all of these ways where you can add sort of domain specificity, something like that.
Yeah. No, I think that science always surprises. I like to remember when uh, in terms of thermodynamics, we start studying as humanity thermodynamics into just the experimental side. We have the four laws, that these laws tell us what it's not going to happen. They don't tell us what is going to happen. So we have, for example, the entropy. It says, okay, this is not going to happen because you break the entropy law, but you don't know what is going to happen. Everything could happen. But when the thing is that some years ago, Boltzmann came out with a new mathematic way to understand thermodynamics. Nobody believes it at the beginning. And what he does was applying statistical methods in micro scale to the thermodynamics, and he could explain so many phenomena. So Boltzmann became the person who reinvented. He used new maths who haven't been used into thermodynamics to describe thermodynamics, and nobody was believed on that at the beginning. And I think that's really great on science, that it's going to surprise you. There is something new that you haven't thought about it. Maybe someone will thought about it, and we came out to the world with that idea. And I was really excited because even for you, there is something that you feel that you want to solve it. That there is something inside my head that I want to solve. But all of the people at this moment who is working artificial intelligence is thinking about the same, as you said, in different kind of problems. And I think it's going to surprise us. Maybe we're going to see some solution in something that we haven't thought about it, and it's going to be great. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. But I think that actually, and I think some of the other women we can look at sort of also look at AI ethics. And I think AI ethics also extend into AI safety. And I sort of say that as an example. For example, and I've seen this on Facebook, I've seen this on TikTok, where a lot of technology and the people behind it are really committed that they've created this for good. And they don't really think of the use cases where it can be used for not good. And so, for example, there's moderation on these platforms and there's community guidelines, but many of them only have English moderators or maybe English and Spanish moderators, but they don't have the thousands of languages and sublanguages that we have globally. So, for example, there was no moderator for Myanmar, and the military just took over Facebook as their communications command central because there was no moderator for that language. So they could do what they wanted without any of the guardrails that you would have had in English or Spanish. I similarly had an experience. I was doing a lot of coverage of the Ukraine war on TikTok and sort of microblogging, and I got really frustrated because what I would see that was acceptable under Russian moderation was not acceptable under English moderation. And so I was getting flagged on community guidelines for things that were existing on the platform, but just moderated through totally different standards and held to a different. And so every post I put at a certain point was getting flagged for not meeting community guidelines. And I'd appeal it and then it would get through, but it wasn't equal. And it was really bothering me that there was so much bias because the English moderation, American moderation was just so different than the Russian moderation.
No, completely. And I saw it directly in some problems that I work on, fraud detection, detecting some frauds. And the thing is that it changes very quick because people understand what was we detecting and they changes. That changes it very, very fast. Also in anti-money laundering detection is a problem in Latin America. Every country has different rules. And the thing is that the way this fraud happen changes so fast, and it's complex. They behave as networks too. But what kind of networks? And we can detect sometimes when it's too late. When we detected it, it's really difficult. And again, I find it really interesting because at the end of the day, on the other side is a human. What we're trying to detect, and we think the same, but we're really complex. And we're really good with problems and trying to jump out of the problem. So that's really interesting. It's really interesting. But yeah, if you work trying to solve it, I understand it could be frustrating. Like, okay, it's changing again and again.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing is the technologists need to understand that not all of their technology will be used for good, and to be aware of that and again, put those safeguards in place. And I think that's where there are a number of women on this list who are very active in AI ethics and fair AI and just understanding that we live in a very complicated biased society, and that we don't want to sort of have this just basically reinforce the biases.
Yeah, and again, if you have suffered from that bias, it's more probable that you will see it and you know how to solve it, or you will have an idea of how to solve it. That's why it's really, again, it's really important to have all the all the perspectives, all the different points of view. Of course, women, but all the colors, all the backgrounds is really necessary into artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, I was also speaking to someone who was talking about when you do have those, I guess, resume, like you can get, or professional photographs, so you can put a photo in and it will just make you look professional. And the question of, she was saying, like, there was a very successful sort of Asian woman, but like the woman, the idea that the computer had of what success looked like didn't look like her. And so it kept trying to turn her into like blonde hair, blue eyes. And she was like, that's not me. Literally, I just want you to make me look professional, not me look like someone else. And then she herself had not used it, but she was very curious what it was going to do with her, because as an Egyptian woman, she is a Muslim Egyptian woman, she's scarfed. And so she's like, what does that look like? Are they just going to give me a head of hair? Or can they accept that I can still look professional in my being scarfed?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, again, in my case, I have colored hair, and it's different. It's purple, and yeah, I look Latina. I do understand that, and I think, yeah, again, it should be in the other way. It's like intelligence, genius can have different, indeed have different forms. When you see through the history, you can see that all the great ideas, the new ideas came from different backgrounds, and we need to totally reinforce that. We already, as humans, try to have understand that it's more easy now to understand that a black woman with her natural hair could be professional, but we can lose that into artificial intelligence if we don't prevent about that into the models. So all that struggle could be lost just because we're not paying attention that this could happen.
Yeah.
So yes,
And so,
yes.
and I think it needs to be back to, again, talking about that front end and that back end, is the people who are building the models, training the models, doing the research, and identify as, being in the field of AI. And it's also the users who feel comfortable speaking up and speaking out and reporting problems that they see, and that then sort of those adjustments can be made. And I think it's interesting, for example, with like Google has its generative AI feature now if you do a Google search. But if you ask it about individuals, it was very clear we don't go there. We don't answer questions about individuals, like private people. Whereas if you go to Bing and you ask it a question about people, including yourself, it will give you all sorts of details. And if you prompt it, it will just give you more. And it's a very interesting how they've each chosen their own path of how they deal with individuals.
Yeah, I was thinking about something. Of course, we're aware that we need all the diversity working on it, but there is something really important that we need to have um, this mindset that is not just technical. We're humans. We need to understand context. I don't know, but where I came from, sometimes people say like, okay, all the humanities that are not worth it. The only thing that is worth it is math, and we are, for example, we're educating professionals who are really good at math and technical, but they don't know anything about context, historical context. They don't have this idea that okay, anything has consequences into society. They think it's not important. For even though that there are some women who suffer from some prejudice, and they don't think it's important to bring it into the table because we're just talking about math and artificial intelligence, but we're not talking about humanity. And I think that's really it's a bad idea. We're creating new products we're gonna serve to society. again, in which society, what kind of products we are releasing, you know. First of all, the second is, I think one of the most intelligent expressions is being able to understand between contexts. Like you have this in just in this context, but you can apply it to a different context. And if we don't train our professionals to do that, we're just training people who are really good at something. Um, I don't know how to say, who is not connected with anything else, and everything is connected. You know, in this case, anything is connected. So I think that is another thing to be critical about. Okay, we're having really good professionals, but how are they about humans? Are they really good at critical thinking? Can we trust on the whole mindset that these people is trying to create onto the new technology? I think that's something that again is really important. Not just participate, but also being able to understand the importance of history, context, and everything.
Well, speaking of historical context, I was just listening to a historian speak about this and wanting to kind of correct what he called kind of a misnomer. He thought it was very unfortunate that we use the phrase one thing led to another, because that implies a chain and that implies order, that there was
Mm,
one thing and it led to another thing and it led to another thing. And he said in history is no way like that at all. He's like, it's more like a tree, and all of the roots led to the trunk, and then that thing then led to the branches and the fruits. And so it's a very complex systems creating other complex systems, and there is no one thing, and it's a whole root system that created that trunk, and then that trunk created sort of all of these consequences. And so it requires um, it's not simple. We like simple. We want to just break it down into, oh, it's just this one thing happened, and then this other thing happened, and then this other thing happened. And he's like, it's not that way at all. And that simplification is actually dangerous. It doesn't really help us understand, the real context and then the real
that's
consequence.
no, that's great. That's great because even for me, I've noticed that that ordinal um, um, way of seeing things, and yeah, sometimes it's gonna to limit you on some other different things. And when again, when you explore it in a different way, you can find some new things. It's a really nice way to see. I haven't heard it the way you're explaining it. I think it's really great. Yeah, it explains a lot.
Yeah. So let's go back to these women. So obviously NVIDIA is a great company and has done a lot of contributions here. And they also have learning paths. Like you can just literally go to nvidia.com and just go to their learning, and they'll walk you through, intro to AI courses and learning paths to really understand how to use those tools. So a lot of this, again, I find is more accessible than I think people are aware of.
Yeah, NVIDIA has been really interesting the last years as company because I've seen how NVIDIA is trying to I don't want to use the word help because it's not help, like invest in some other small companies that have great potential. It's like, okay, NVIDIA is investing in, for example, H2O. I have used H2O. They have one part is open source, it's really good, and there is some other part, a platform that they sell, and it has great potential, and that's really interesting. I think that having different options makes that like a healthy competence that is really good. Like that's why we're seeing like a lot of models from different sources, and they are all good. We can test it, learn from it. I think that's really interesting. That most interesting here is that Amina, as you said, look, she has all the category of the that could fit into the article from the New York Times. She's a doctor, but she's also a director in a research area of a big company. So it could easily be a good fit into the article that we see in the New York Times if we think that the person who wrote it was just looking for business people or business people in big companies. This person, in this case, Anima, sorry, fits into those categories. Maybe he didn't want to put her feet there, or again, he just want to put the people that is already known and people is talking about. So look at it. She's all been, I know this is with another professor. in the Caltech. She has, I mean, just from one person to have these two roles, I think she's just a genius. Also into the technical as in the business part. So she has more than I'm not say like she has filled all the requirements to be in the first page of any good news, any good post. Um, Again, it's an expert in developing AI algorithms for scientific applications, and she's also is a key player in AI for science. That is in general, as you say, like using AI into some other different ways of applying it to help humanity. So this is great.
All right, who's next?
Hmm. We started in a different order. But yeah, okay, we already talked about Casey, Fei, Mira, Ray, Joel, um, Francesca. I didn't know her, but just for reading this again, she's working at IBM in the ethical AI team. For example, I said she's a leader, a global leader in ethical AI. So, as we were talking about, the importance of having women into ethical, all the ethical development of new technology and new algorithms, which is
And
great.
and similarly, IBM, Cisco, just like I mentioned, NVIDIA, Google, Microsoft, all have these free learning paths that you can just jump into. IBM has several courses that all talk about various aspects of AI, cloud, different things that can just kind of bolster that technical knowledge.
NVIDIA has a newsletter for women. I think I have the subscription. It's free, of course, and it's every month sending you new news and articles about women who work in IBM or who are related to some program in IBM. That is really interesting. It's really good to have those role models to again be thinking that there is people who exist out there who can look like me or who are women who are from different backgrounds, and they are working in AI. It's really interesting. Lisa Lu, it says, look again, she's a CEO of a company called AMD. It says like she was. Read more about her transformative leadership in Fortune. For example, this woman came into the Fortune magazine. So again, if she could fit into the category of a CEO and of a company who's working in artificial intelligence, who could be that person in the article from the New York Times. Yeah. She's also working in AR hardware. It's really interesting. There is a lot of things I've been listening about hardware itself from the last years because we've seen a lot of changes into the softwares. That the hardware itself, I think, is going to change again. It could be from computer, uh, com- quantum computers, or some companies in the United States are working into, I have to say, not the digital computation, the other kind of computation, analytical computation, and trying to create computers who are analytical but could solve problems that the digital computation are solving at this moment. And it will help because on the digital solutions, we're all the time talking about just binary solutions. An analytical solution uh, can have results in between those binary solutions. So, for example, when we an analytical computer is inside communicating in terms of all O's and ones, zeros and ones all the time, and we can miss some precisions between those that range into the O and the one. Some analytical computers can have more precision because they can go inside those range, those continuous range. I know this is like really a little bit weird. I haven't heard about it till I saw some companies in the US working on it, and it's just starting. They are in their early days, but I think it's going to be really interesting in the future how the hardware is also going to change another another way. And here is another person, another woman. It's called Vivian said. Look, it says she's working in energy efficient AI accelerators. Again, I think there is another a whole research uh, path that is at this moment happening. Yeah, in
Hmm.
terms of hardware. In terms of hardware, I think it's going to be really interesting in some years.
Well, I've heard that in terms of the question of AI sustainability and sort of its energy consumption and just
Mm.
how much data it's processing and um, questions about web sustainability, just in terms of we all, have just gotten so comfortable storing everything everywhere indefinitely. Like we have these giant attics and basements where we just think we can put thousands of photos and files that we never look at again, and we're just individuals. But also, so when you're just dealing with all of this data, we're now awash with data that it's actually not free to store. It has
Yeah,
an environmental impact, and it has, an actual, like I said, there's hardware somewhere where that data is living on. And so we have to kind of, just because we don't see it, it's invisible to us, doesn't mean it doesn't come at a cost, both in terms of somewhere, somebody's paying for it, but also somewhere somebody is, there's an environmental impact as well.
yes, yes. I was remember some years ago, Andrew Angie was in Colombia, in Bogota, giving some talk. It was really interesting, and somebody asked him about what's next. That was years ago, before LLMs came out, and I remember he said maybe what is going the next thing that is going to happen in terms of new algorithms are algorithms who can perform as well as the algorithms that we have right now, but with less data. It haven't happened. I know it's not easy. How are we gonna train a model without enough data? But I think there should be some people working on it. It will be really interesting. It will be like another way. It's not just it will be another way to try to reduce, as you say, all the contamination that we have also producing into the data containers, the servers, and everything else. So it will be interesting to see what is going to happen.
Yeah, but anyway, so she's a pioneer in the energy efficient AI accelerators, and I just mentioned that because they're not necessarily energy efficient right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's one of the problems. I don't know if you don't have enough resources and you want to train something big, you're at that time you're gonna face that first problem that you're gonna need a lot of computation for that.
All right, who's next? We've
Hmm.
got
And we have Rachel Orstason. This is the last in this article. She said she stands as a pioneer in self-driving cars. This, for example, this is great. Also, she is a CEO of Wabi, an innovative company pushing the boundaries of generative AI to revolutionize autonomous trucking. Self-driving cars is something that again is everyone is really interesting. It doesn't matter if you can buy one self-driving car or not. You're really interested in what is going to happen there. Are they really worth their price or not? How good they are. Everyone can talk about that. And when we see like these videos, or for example, I don't know, there is a Tesla who reacts faster than any human could have reacted for in a car crash, or if something went wrong because we didn't recognize a kid on the street or something like that. So it's a really interesting with a lot of movement subject. And so again, this person could easily would fit into the article. It's like a woman who is CEO for a self-driving cars was like a subject that is really interesting. Like everyone knows what is right now. Everyone knows what is a self-driving car, so it can relate easily what is she working on. Um, yeah, it says also that she spearhead Uber self-driving car division. Again, this is another big company name she is involved with, and also again into modern key components into modern AI landscape. So another great woman who was not mentioned by the New York Times.
I think there was one or two as we just scroll back up. We'll just kind of catch up. I think there were the one with the Coursera.
Oh yeah,
We didn't talk about her. So we talked
yes,
about her. Yeah, we didn't have to. Yes, she's the one.
Dav,
Daphne.
Daphne, great. Again, everyone knows Coursera. This is common that you can know the name of a big company, but you don't know beyond the CEO, and if the CEO is a man, beyond that, you don't know who else is working on it. In this case, is was one of those cases when we have a great woman also working in those companies. So here is Dr. Daphne Kohler, and says that she has worked on machine learning courses. Sorry, she has worked on machine learning with 200 plus publications. Co-founder of Coursera, who is a well-known company platform for learning. Um, Everyone I know has sometimes seen some Coursera
Oh,
courses that are
it's
really good.
like I said, I'm doing all the Google ones, and they're excellent, and they're robust. And I'm feeling that they're either filling in gaps, they're giving me some new skills, and I'm doing them, in tandem with being a university student. But I feel like right now, this is coming at so many of us so quickly, and we're just the cultures are becoming a lot more data driven, and I just feel like for people to not end up on the back foot, these are great ways for people who are full-time working professionals with families to just get a little learning in that is delivered to them in very accessible ways.
Yeah, and Coursera has like different options. You can have a big specialization course who's gonna take you months. You can have short courses. It's really nice. It's really good. I really like that it's hands-on also. And you can touch some code. You can do some exercises. It guides you pretty well. It's really good.
Yeah, and
Let
they've started doing even study hours and study groups to create networking opportunities among students. So I'm a fan. I really like what Coursera is offering. I think it's reasonably priced. I think it's like I said it, and again, there was kind of a reference that if you think of the biggest sort of the people we think of when we think about the Industrial Revolution, like the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and all and the Vanderbilts and all of those people who sort of built the Industrial Revolution, what they were saying is they were all born within a couple of years of each other. And what they were saying is the reason that was that the opportunity for many, either they were too old, they were already in their careers, they were already sort of set in their ways, set in their past, they weren't necessarily looking for new opportunities because they were already kind of fixed. Where this was happening right as they were coming of age. And then for other people, they were too young to jump into the opportunity. And so it wasn't so necessarily about them being of great mind or great genius. There was a little bit of right place, right time.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like where we're at right now is that we are in this new revolution. And it is a time that great wealth and fortunes will be built, great innovations will be made, great transformations to society are happening and will continue to happen. And so if it could be simple as a 401k and someone's like investment plan, these are good companies to start thinking about investing in and riding that wave and benefiting from their ability to profit. And as they go up in value or start to pay out dividends in time, but there's a lot of growth potential just even from an investor's point of view. But there's also opportunities, like a lot of these companies are saying, build your startup on our technology. go ahead and plug in and build stuff. So there's so much room for developers, for entrepreneurs, for business leaders, for creatives and scientists and everybody else on the front end. Use the tools, make stuff, do stuff, go faster, collaborate, with these technologies. So I think that, like I said, everybody at every place in society has an opportunity to benefit from the development of these AI tools. But I do think that you have to kind of look up from whatever it is you've been doing for a really long time, to understand how big this changes. Like, I feel so fortunate that I had wrapped up a career and I was like, I just don't want to do that anymore. I'm moving on and I'm just going to take some time off and go back to school. And so I am not the age where those titans started. I'm like 25 years later, but I still feel like I'm with peers at school who are in the early 20s and they're just starting their careers. And like, things we're seeing is like every class within my university, I mean, every major, it doesn't matter if you're studying biology, criminal justice, earth sciences, communications, has a data science class embedded into it. And so I feel like everybody, like, I think you even said when we started this conversation, they were originally called, like, had a particular name and then it became data scientist. And I think as we go forward, more and more jobs aren't going to be called data scientists, but are going to have an expectation that you can do data science within the job.
Yes,
And that you can
yes.
either use AI tools or build AI tools or train AI tools within the scope of your work. I think more and more jobs are going to have that baked into their needs and requirements.
Yeah, and as you said, it's moving very fast. I remember, for example, I came from a third world country when people don't used to program, and I just wanted to do it. I learned how to do it, and I could move really fast and be here where there is all these companies moving, where there's all people with all the talent. And I used to think when I learned how to program, I used to think, okay, not that not don't if you don't know how to program, it's almost as you are losing from all the things that you can easily do out there. And right now, it's like if you don't know something about artificial intelligence, even though you don't need to understand the deep models, but if you do know how it works, you can easily use very good, very fast, very good tools for really good purposes for yourself. Yeah, for your work. So it's really interesting. There is a lot of room for new ideas that sometimes in years ago it will be too difficult or too expensive. And right now you have more options that you can do some really interesting things. Yes.
Yeah. So I think this has been a fascinating deep dive into the role of women in AI, the role of everybody in AI, that sort of stand out as just a handful of probably the many many leaders and researchers and those involved. But at least now we have a view to a gender balanced uh, look at some of these people, in past, present, and sort of leading the future. And actually, I would say these are mostly, I want to say, um, past in terms of they've been doing this for a while and they're building on that. Present in terms of they're very active. Future, they will obviously continue to play an important role. But I think that there's a more historical context where I'm sure there are many other women who perhaps are no longer with us, who still were very foundational in building this whole field.
Yeah, I hope that we have learned from the past, learned enough that have to how to recognize the geniuses of our time, as you say, before they're not longer here. If you notice, the during the last years, it's more common to see women earning the Nobel Prize. And you used to listen, for example, okay, this the last year, this is the third woman to earn the Nobel Prize in physics. Okay, it's time. It's time to have a woman every year in a group who is earning the Nobel Prize. But it's still like a bittersweet feeling that you hear, okay, it's the third woman, but how many women has passed for it? Lucky enough that these women at this moment we are seeing their value in different contexts, but in science and technology. So, yeah.
Oh, it's exciting. I think this is great. I think this is like, it was very helpful to me, and I hope to everyone else, to really sort of do this deep dive. And I think uniquely having your perspective of already having familiarity with many of them and understanding the important context of their work. And I think that that's lent a perspective that was just incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and I know, I don't know, maybe because our generations of professionals, we didn't have role models, but we feel like there's something missing, and now we're having it. And it's like a candy store. Like you see this woman and this other and this other. For us, I can imagine how it's going to be for other young women who we already are here, and we're doing podcasts. We're talking a lot. We're being shown. We're out there showing ourselves. It's really interesting. I think it's really nice to see what is going to happen, how it's going to evolve, how what is going to be their perspectives, versus ours, versus the generation before us. It's really interesting.
Yeah, because I think it's hard to pursue things that we cannot see, and we don't go for things we don't believe are possible.
Yeah, that's definitely sure. And yeah, I don't know how to explain, but it's really nice. It's really nice to see, okay, there is another person who looks like me or a little bit more like me out there, who talks like me, who speak up about those things that I have thought about sometimes, but I thought they're not really good to say it out loud. And they actually was a good idea. But because I haven't heard anything, anyone else talking about it, I maybe didn't have the courage to say it out loud. So yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No, I think it's great. So thank you everybody for joining us today. That was going to wrap us up for our talk on AI, and specifically focusing on women in AI. And Angie, thank you so much for joining us today. And with that, everybody, we'll go ahead and see you next time.
Thank you so much.